So you might have heard of a poisonous animal and a venomous animal, but what kind of animal is Toxungens? I'm Dan, you're watching Pinpoint Wildlife. Let's get into the video. So we got the poisonous, the venomous, and the toxungenous. I think that's how you say it. So let's start with poisonous. So by definition, a poisonous organism has to contain toxins that can only be transferred via touch, ingestion, or inhalation. Alright, so I'm just going to look up poison on Google to see what we can find here, see if my definition's accurate or not, and we'll start from there. Okay, so it looks like there's like a general definition of poisons and venoms, and they're kind of used interchangeably. Like right here it says the snake is poisonous, but in biology we'd never call a snake poisonous unless the snake was transmuting its poison, or was transferring its poison from something other than its fangs. So in general terms, I guess you could use them interchangeably, but it's good to know like a more accurate definition. I would say it's kind of similar to the fact that we call pumpkins, we call tomatoes vegetables, but they're actually fruits. But in culinary terms, those are vegetables. So there's a kind of like a difference between a biological definition and like a more popular definition. And I guess like the context kind of matters too. But we're going to use this definition here because it seems to be the most accurate, whether ingested, inhaled, or absorbed through the skin. So now I'm going to check out venoms in biology and what makes venoms different than poisons. We're going to use this definition here. Venoms are distinguished from poisons in that unlike ingested poisons, venom is delivered in a bite, sting, or similar action. So we have the venomous organism that is usually acting upon the prey, trying to inject its toxins into the prey, whereas the poisonous organism is usually the prey, and it's trying to defend itself from the predator and using its toxins usually passively or defensively rather than aggressively. What's interesting is a lot of poisonous organisms don't actually make their toxins. They get them from other sources in their environment. For example, most poison dart frogs have toxins, but they actually don't produce their toxins. They get them from the bugs they eat, like the ants and the beetles in the forest, and a lot of those bugs and beetles either produce it themselves or they get it from a plant that's also in the rainforest. So the toxins are being passed down from plants to bugs to eventually the poison dart frog, which they can store it in their poison glands, and some of them are deadly to humans. Conversely, venomous organisms usually produce their own toxins. Some of them don't, but a lot of them do. And one example would be like a rattlesnake. And what you might notice is a lot of rattlesnakes and other venomous snakes, when they see something like a human, they won't actually inject a lot of venom in you when they bite you, even though just a little bit can potentially kill a human. They want to use all their venom on their prey, so they try to save it because it takes a lot to produce that venom because they're self-producing it. If you're a snake, you'd much rather secure your food instead of using all your venom to ward off something that's trying to kill you. What if there's an animal that actively uses its toxins but doesn't really inject it into their prey? What would you call those? A group of scientists specialized in the study of toxic animals came together to redefine and classify toxic biological secretions and the organisms that employ them. The study basically aims at dropping the ambiguity of definitions that we talked about earlier and to include more organisms that were excluded from the two definitions. What? The scientists basically came to the conclusion that there needs to be a third class of toxic organisms, thus the new word toxungen was created to include an organism that did have a delivery mechanism but did not inject or penetrate a wound like a snake's fang. One example of such an organism would be the spitting cobra, which we know is venomous, but it's also toxungenous because the snake has the ability to spit venom towards the attacker's eyes to defend itself. So let's review our biological toxins. We have poison, which has no delivery mechanism, no penetration wound, and can be transferred from ingestion, inhalation, or absorption from the surface of the body. Now, toxungens have a delivery mechanism. They do not have a penetration wound, and they can be delivered from the surface of the body without accompanying a wound. So venoms do have a delivery mechanism, they do have a penetration wound, and they have to be to internal tissues from the wound. So here's the fun part where you get to practice for yourself. I'm going to give some organisms on screen, and then you're going to tell me if they're poisonous, venomous, toxungenous, or some combination. Now, some of the images are kind of vague, so I'll give a little definition under the picture, and tell me how you score. Alright guys, let me know how many you got right in the comments, and as always, like the video, subscribe the video, tell me if you learned something. Dan from Pinpoint Wildlife signing out. Wow.